Since the standard is set in advance, the researcher has to make sure that he should not skip any of the activity in between. So each and every research work should have a particular objective. Without an objective, collecting the data or doing so much of research activity, it is a mere waste. Suppose if the research objective is different and the finding is different, then it is of no use. So it should always related with the research objective only. Hello everyone, I am Harshita, lecturer, Department of Commerce, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. My dear students, today we are in the third session of Unit 6 of the subject Business Research Method, and the Unit 6 was about Research Report, and this is the last unit of this particular subject. Already we have discussed few of the concepts. Let us quickly recall what we have discussed in a previous session. So in a previous session, I have covered this topic, that is type of research report. So what are the various types of research report which is prepared at the end of the research activity? So we have seen in detail. So there are mainly two types of research report. One is oral report, other one is written report. So in oral report, how the research activities or the research report they are going to present orally, not in the form of writing. So it is called as oral report, where the oral report can be presented in the form of seminars, workshops, etc. Now coming to the written report, that is other type of research report, that is written report, where the report will be in the form of writings. Okay, and we have seen what are the various types of written report. In today's session, we shall continue with a new concept, that is components of research report. So as I've told you, this is your last unit. Here you are going to completely learn about the research report, and research report is the end result of your research activity. So they have kept at the end of your syllabus, that is about research report, because always we are going to write the research report at the end of our research activity. So there are certain standards which is set. According to that only, the research report has to be written, or if they are going to present. So there are certain standard set which is made. So according to that only, the oral report has to be presented. So let us see what are the components of research report. So how a research report can be written. So what are the standards which is being set in order to write a research report. So a research report is presented according to the standard set. So I have already told you there are certain standards according to which the research report has to be written. So if you are not going to set those standards and if we write randomly, so there will be no uniformity in the research report. So the researcher has to make sure that he has to follow the standards which is being set. Accordingly, he has to write the research report. So, standard set for this purpose, it should be prepared logically, legibly, and incorporate the methodology involved right from the beginning till the end of the research study. Now, what the researcher has to do? Since the standard is set in advance, the researcher has to make sure that he should not skip any of the activity in between. So he has to follow the certain procedures, and always the research report should be in such a way that it should be as simple as possible. It should be precise. It should be in a way of, or it should be in an understandable manner. So there are certain characteristics of research report. So already we have discussed about it. So in order to maintain that standard, there are certain procedure they has to follow. So which we are going to learn under components of research report. So generally the research report includes the following components or contents. Let us see what are the contents or the components of research report. Now coming to the list here, so we have letter of transmittal. So in this whole session we are going to discuss about all these points, what we are going to write in each and every stage here. That is, first one is letter of transmittal, and the next one is title page, third one is table of contents, and the fourth one is executive summary, we call it as synopsis. Next one is introduction, methodology, limitations, findings, conclusions and recommendations, appendix, and the last one is bibliography. So these are the contents or the components of research report. Now let us go one by one what each component tells or what each contents tell about the research report. Now coming to the first one, letter of transmittal. Now what is this letter of transmittal? So it is prepared by the researcher before beginning his research work. So you know, for our research activity, we need lot of data as well as information. Now, in our letter of transmittal, so before collecting the data or information, in our letter of transmittal, we have to write the purpose. So, for what purpose we are going to collect the information, from whom we have to collect, and how we have to collect, everything we have to write in a letter. So, what is the main objective of research activity? Now, the respondents will not simply give or simply reveal the information or simply give the data. So, there should be a purpose, right? And the respondents has to know the purpose why they are going to give the information. So, in a letter of transmittal, what the researcher will do? So, researcher will write everything. So, what is the objective of research? What is the purpose? From whom he has to collect? And what is the duration of the research work? Everything he has to write in the letter of transmittal, and it has to be given to the respondents along with the questionnaire. So, the respondents read the letter of transmittal and they will know the purpose why they are going to give the information. Then they'll fill up the questionnaire. Okay, so this is the first step here. The letter of transmittal is prepared by the researcher. Reasons for undertaking the research work. So, as I told you, in a letter of transmittal, it contains what is the reason to undertake the research work on that particular topic, research objectives, and the permission awarded by the authority. So, there will be certain authority from whom the researcher has to take the permission and collect the information. So, who is that authority from whom the researcher have taken permission? So, that also has to be written. For research, etc. are included in this letter. Now, what you have to remember here? So, the letter of transmittal is prepared by the researcher, which contains what is the purpose, what is the objective, and who is the authority who have given the permission to collect the information. So, like that, all the information will be included and it has to be written in that letter. The researcher takes print of as many letters as he thinks adequate for the research. He will send this letter along with the questionnaire. So, I have already told you. So, what is going to do with that letter? He will keep that letter, he will take a printout of it and he will give to the respondents along with the questionnaires. So, what the respondents will do? Respondents will read the letter, they'll come to know what is the purpose and then they will fill the questionnaire. So, to target respondents, requesting them to submit the questionnaire well in time to continue the research work. Hope you are clear with the letter of transmittal. Now, coming to the second one, title page. So, here the research report should also contain the title page. Now, let us see what are included in the title page. The title page includes the following contents, that is, what is the title page? The main page, that is a title page. Okay, so it should contain the subject matter of the report. So it should contain what is the subject included in that report. Then beneficiary of the research report. Who is the users? Who is the beneficiary? So who will be benefited from that particular report? Then by whom the research report is prepared? That is the person or the researcher who have prepared that research report. So his name has to be included. Name of persons who collects the data. So, who will collect the data? So, it may be done by the researcher himself or maybe some qualified person may be appointed by the researcher who collects the information. So, everything has to be written in the title page. Now, coming to the third component, that is table of contents. So, you know the research report will be more than 100 pages. So, we cannot go through each and every page in order to refer certain things. Suppose I want some information, I have to refer. But I cannot go through each and every page and refer because there are more than 100 pages. Correct? So, what I'll do, so if you have seen your textbook or if you have seen your reference book, so they'll give the contents. Why the contents has been given? For the easy reference. In the sense, first unit 1, page number 1 to 45. So they will give like that. Okay. So the main thing is that in order to make it more easy for a reference. Okay. So here also in the research report, I can't go through 100 pages. So what I'll do, I'll directly go through the contents. So whatever the topics I want, I can see the page number and I can directly refer those concepts. So that is about table of contents. The research report may run into several hundred pages. It is not easy to locate the required information at a glance. So this I have already told you. So we cannot go through each and every page in order to search my information what I needed. So what I'll do, I'll go through the table contents. I'll see what the information I wanted, and through table of contents, we'll come to know in the whole research report what are the contents which has been included. So which one I have to refer. So I can go through that, I can directly see the page number and I can directly turn back and see the information. So therefore, the entire report is divided into chapters. So same as your book. So here also the research report is being divided into chapters, where our business research methods has been divided into 6 units, correct? In the same way, it is being divided into chapters. So within each chapter, classification and subclassification of the data is presented for easy comprehension. There also, so if you see your unit 1, there are number of topics, right? So there are number of topics which is been included. So they will give that topic separately. So that will come to know from that particular unit what we have to learn, correct? So what are the concepts we have to learn under unit 1? In the same way, in research report also, suppose it is chapter 1. So they will give you precisely what are the contents which are included in the chapter 1. And the contents in chapter 2, separately they will give the subdivisions. So page number for each chapter and the important items have been displayed in the contents. So in the contents, everything will be displayed clearly. Therefore, beneficiaries of the research can search the interested topic easily and quickly by looking into the content table. So this is all we do in our daily life, right? So if you wanted to search a particular information, so instead of going through the book, so what we'll do, we'll just see the table of content. So whatever the information which I wanted, I can directly go through and search the information. So this also happens in case of research report. Next, fourth one, executive summary or synopsis. Now what is this executive summary? As I told you, in the research report, there are more than 100 pages. So I can't, so in my busy schedule, I can't go through each and every page in detail. So the researcher will prepare a summary formed of his research report, which is known as what? Synopsis, or we call it as executive summary. So why this executive summary is being prepared? Because we can't go through in detail activities or the all research pages of the research report. So a small executive summary of the whole research work will be prepared, which is called as synopsis. Executive officers in many companies will work without limitations. Okay, so they will have less time, at the same time more work, and they don't have much time to refer the research report. So these are the certain limitations which is the executive officers. So they have busy schedule and rare to spend the office timings on other issues. So they don't have sufficient time. Suppose a business report or if a research report is being prepared on a particular topic, but they don't have sufficient time, but of course they want to solve a particular problem, but due to time lag, they can't go through each and every contents of the research report. So, in order to make them easy, the researcher himself will prepare a summary form of his whole research work, which is called as what? Synopsis. So, in addition to this, they have no good enough time to study the research report in detail. So, in order to overcome this limitation, the researcher has to prepare the synopsis. So, they want to study the research report at a glance. So, they want to read at a glance. So, they want to understand the results and findings of the research as quickly as possible. So they wanted to know the exact result of the research report. So in order to help such executives to understand the summary results of the research, executive summary is prepared in the research report. So hope you are clear. So just you have to remember here that in order to make the business executive easier for the referencing of research report, a summary form of whole research activity is being prepared by the researcher, which is called as executive summary or synopsis. So at a glance, the business executive can refer that very easily and very quickly. Executive summary incorporates all the relevant and the important matters of the research in a concise manner. In a short manner, it includes all the important aspects. That means it exhibits the important observations, interpretations, findings, suggestions, solutions, recommendations. So like that, important concepts only will be included in the synopsis. So executive summary also include research objectives. Therefore, it is always prepared and reported at the end of the detailed research report. So when we can prepare the synopsis, so we can prepare only after conducting a research activity. Then only we'll come to know what is the findings, what is the suggestions, what is the recommendations that has to be given to the users, so that it will be prepared at the end of the research work. Next, fifth point is that introduction. Now we are going to enter into the research report. Okay, so the main part of the research report, that is introduction. So introduction provides the basic information about the research. So here the researcher has to introduce about his research work in the introduction paragraph. Okay, so introduction provides the basic information. It contains the basic information of his research activity. So this parts illustrates definite meanings to the unknown, critical as well as complex phrases. It eliminates unclear phrases. So what are the important things what are included in the research activity? And the basic things what are included in the research work, everything will be included in the introduction part. So it provides information about the research studies. It also illustrates the objectives, scope, then research methodology and the methods of hypothesis testing in the research. So we know about each and every concepts in detail. So each and every research work should have a particular objective. Without an objective, collecting the data or doing so much of research activity, it is a mere waste. So it should have a proper objective. So based on the objective, the researcher has to see through that. He has to fulfill that objective. That is, the introduction part contains the objectives that I have told you. So it contains the main part of the research work. So it contains the objective, it contains the scope. What is the scope of doing that research on that particular topic? So what is the main scope? Next, research methodology. So what are the various methods which is being involved in research in order to collect the data, or what type of method which is being used in order to conduct the research activity, and method of hypothesis. So we know about it. So hypothesis in the sense the assumptions which is being made by the researcher before conducting the research work. So what would be the ultimate results? So he is going to presume. So that is known as hypothesis. So what are the method? What type of method of hypothesis is being used by the researcher? So in a brief form, the introduction contains all the main topics. So that is known as what? Introduction. The instruments applied during the research process can also known from this section. So what are the important concepts? At the same time, what are the instruments? So in order to measure the accuracy or in order to measure the correctness, so what are the instrument which is being used? So all these will be included in the introduction part. And the next step is that methodology. So let us see what is this methodology. So what type of methods of research the researcher is going to follow. So this section describes the procedure adopted to achieve the research objectives. So what are the procedures which are being followed by the researcher in order to attain his research objectives? This section clearly illustrates the reason for adoption of a particular method to conduct the research. So here methodology in the sense what type of method of research the researcher is going to follow and what is the reason to select that particular method. So that will be included in the research methodology. Methodology provides the information on the following subjects. So let us see on what basis the methodology will be there. So it is based on objectives of the research. The researcher may select what type of method he has to follow. Research design. So based on research design also the methodology will be there. And the next one is the method used for data collection. So what is the method? Whether they are going for primary data collection or secondary data collection. So if so, from whom they have to collect, why they have collected or why they have chosen primary data collection, why they have not chosen secondary data. So those reasons will also be there. Next, sampling method. So what type of sampling they are going to follow, whether they are going to follow cluster sampling or simple sampling method. So like that there are various types of sampling method what we have discussed, and the type of questionnaire used and the reasons for use. So why they have used a particular type of questionnaire, so what type of questionnaire they are going to use, so that also will be included under methodology. Next, the enumerators and other staff appointed while studying the research topic. So as I told you, researcher himself cannot do all the activity. So he may do, because if he has lot of time, he can do by himself slowly. But when the research activity has to be done in a quick manner or the time duration is too short, so what has to do? He has to appoint a enumerators or a skilled person in order to help him out. So this methodology also tells that who are the enumerators, what is their qualifications, why they are being appointed. So such reasons will be there. Next one is specific technology used to solve a particular type of problem. So what type of technology or what type of technique they might have used in the research activity to solve that particular problem. So this is the sixth step that tells about the methodology, that is what type of method or what type of research method they have followed in the research work. Next one is limitations. Of course, research activity is not free from any of the limitations. So there are certain difficulties, there are certain complications which are being overcome by the researcher in order to complete his research work. As I told you, it's not an easy task to conduct a research on a particular topic. So there are number of limitations. So there may be shortage of time or shortage of amount, shortage of resources, or he might have selected a particular topic, but there are no proper respondents who are giving the data or information. So such type of limitations he might have overcome in his research work. So in the limitations, he has to write what are the difficulties he has faced during the research work. So research method and the research report are not completely free from certain limitations. So as I told you, it is not free from limitations. There will be some problem. There will be some difficulties which is faced by the researcher. So those difficulties have to be recorded in the research report. The research study also includes certain limitations. Such type of limitations must be acknowledged while preparing the research report. So it has to be included in the research report. Avoiding or hiding such limitations which will carry no meaning. So here each and every researcher has to present his limitations. What are the limitations he might have overcome during his research work? So what are the difficulties he has faced during his research work? So that has to be recorded here. So instead, a decision based on such research report is dangerous also, because the user who is going to read his research report might feel that so this would be a fake research report, because without any limitations, if the researcher is going to collect the information easily, then we cannot tell that the researcher have taken so much struggle to complete the research work. So it would be an easier task, right? So it is a duty of the researcher to mention what are the limitations he might have face there. So it may be limitations of time. He will be having a shorter period of time where he had to complete the research work. At the same time, the resources, as I told you, availability of resources might not be there. Okay, so there also he might have faced some difficulty, and even though he might not be in a position to recognize who is the actual respondents, because there are certain topics where we cannot identify from whom we have to collect. So in the sense, there is no actual respondents. So, and the other limitation is that even though we have identified the respondents are not cooperating properly. Thereby, we cannot collect the data easily. So, those are the certain limitations here. The description of limitation does not discriminate the research results. Instead, it will reinforce decisions and judgment. So, based on the limitations, we'll come to know what effort the researcher has made in order to collect the data or information and how difficult it was for the researcher to complete the research work. Next one is findings. So, this is the main thing of the research report, that is findings. So, you know the objective, you know who are the respondents, he has collected the data from them, he has analyzed the data, he has interpreted the data, and he has to see through that what is the actual findings of his researcher, what he has found out. So, by collecting the information, he knows the problem and he has collected sufficient information in order to solve the problem. But in that situation, what he has found out, so that he has to write here. Okay, that is in the research report. So, this component in the research report is little bit bigger when compared to other contents of the report. As I have already told you, this is an important part of your research activity. So, what the researcher have actually found out about that particular topic. So, in this component, the results of the research are addressed exhaustively to enable the stakeholder to understand the research outcome. So, it's nothing but what findings is nothing but the research outcome, what the result we have got from the research activity. So, this component includes findings, conclusions, assertions and explanations. So, these are the important concepts which are included in the findings. So, what are the findings they have got, what the conclusion the researcher have given, what are the suggestions the researcher is going to give. So, everything will be included in the findings. So, the result is supported by adequate number of tables, statements, schedules, diagrams, etc. So, it also includes the findings in the form of diagrams, in the form of tables, in the form of schedules. So, everything will be included here. The researcher must also ensure that the person studying the report can understand the subject, that is research result, without any difficulty. So, what the user will do? So, normally what the user will do? So, user will understand the problem and then he will directly go through the findings of the research work. So, in order to solve that problem, what the researcher have found out. So, that the main thing. So, the findings is a main thing what the user is going to target. That is what he has found out in order to solve that problem. So, the researcher must establish that the statements are systematically represented in the report. So, as I told you, there are certain standards. In writing the findings also, there are certain standards to be followed. Based on that, the research report will be prepared. The findings of the research study must be narrated by keeping in mind the research objective. So, it should always focus on the research objective. Suppose if the research objective is different and the finding is different, then it is of no use. So, it should always related with the research objective only. So, these are the findings and this is an important part of your research report. Next is conclusions and recommendations. So, now the researcher have found out what is the actual research problem and how it has to be solved. Now, the researcher has to give the conclusion for his research report and recommendations also. So, let us see what it is. Conclusions are drawn on the basis of scientifically proven or the tested statement. So, based on the information what he has actually got in order to solve a particular problem, based on that the researcher is going to give the conclusions. So, this is composed systematically and according to some set standards. Conclusion includes the decisions based on hypothesis tested. Okay, so here how they are going to give the conclusions, it should be in a systematic manner, and the set standards. So how the standards has been set in the advance, accordingly the conclusions has to be there. And what the conclusions has to tell us, so it should be in such a way that it should be based on the decisions of hypothesis testing. So we know before conducting the research work, the researcher will create some hypothesis or make some assumptions about the result what he is going to get in the future. Then after collecting the data, he will get the exact result. Now, hypothesis, so that is known as what? Hypothesis testing, where they are going to compare the assumptions what they have made earlier with the exact results what they have got. So, due to this hypothesis testing, they will come to know what is the actual result they have got at the end of the research work. What is the decisions that can be taken. So, here conclusion should always be drawn based on hypothesis testing. The conclusion is drawn on the issues and objectives specified in the research. So, conclusions and recommendations should be in such a way that it should be based on hypothesis testing, and it should be based on the ultimate result what the researcher have got in his research work. The decisions made under research are arranged step by step. So, conclusions include the following. So, let us see what are the conclusions, which includes the, and conclusion follows the findings. Okay, so conclusion follows finding in the sense what? After findings, conclusions will be drawn. So, this confirms that the researcher is fully aware of the research problem. So, by conclusion itself, the user will come to know to what extent the researcher is aware about the research problem. All reports must necessarily include recommendations. Recommendations is also important. So, conclusions will be drawn based on the findings, and recommendations is also important in the sense what suggestions or what the researcher is going to recommend the user for the further study, or what the researcher is going to recommend the further researcher to take up the further studies. Okay, so when recommendations are made, it is easy to know under what circumstances they have been made. So, under what situations the researcher have given the recommendations. In addition, it is also easier to understand the conditions necessary to implement the recommendation. In the sense, he wants to recommend his research work to some other researcher for the further studies, or he has to recommend his research work to some other users who will make use of that research report. So, this is about conclusions as well as recommendations. Next one is appendix. Now, what do I mean by appendix in research report? So, it should contain all the details with which the research activity is being conducted. So, it may be the questionnaire where the data has been collected, or it may be the use of tables, it may be use of diagrams with which the research report is being prepared, or with which the research activity have become successful. So, what are the instruments or what are the techniques they have used there? So, that has to be included in the appendix. Okay. So, appendix will be, or appendices will be addressed at the end of the research report. It provides supplementary information, that is additional information that supports the main part of the report. So, in order to make the research report successful, what are the instruments or what are the techniques they have used, or what the techniques they have used? So, that will be included in the appendix. So, this includes the following, that is detailed calculation statements. So, there may be certain calculation which have been made in order to make the research work successful. So, those calculations has to be written, tables assisted for the calculation. So, there may be use of tables also, where in order to present the data in an understandable manner. So, those tables has to be included. Format of questionnaire used for data collection. So, through primary data collection, of course, the questionnaire will be distributed to the respondents, correct? So, those format of questionnaire has to be included here. And the next one is various numeric tables. So, there may be numerical tables which is being used also. So, a copy of that also has to be recorded there. Next, calculation that support the selected sample size. So after selecting the sample size, what are the calculations which is being made in order to analyze as well as interpret the data? So that also has to be included in the appendix. So what you have to remember here, so it is a supplementary information which is being included, or additional information which is being included in order to make the research successful. That is appendix. Next one is bibliography. Of course, the researcher cannot himself collect all the data or information. He might have referred some other information also, some other research work or some other books he might have referred. So what the reference he has made, so that has to be included in the bibliography. So bibliography component includes the following. So the first one is books used for reference. So there may be certain books which he might have referred on that particular topic in order to collect the information. So those books name has to be written along with the author's name also. So books used for reference during the research, or he might used periodicals, dailies, monthly, half yearly or yearly reports and publications etc. need as a reference material during the study. So this is known as bibliography, where by referring what he has done his research work, because he can't get all the information instantly, correct? So he has to refer certain books which has been already published, or he might have referred previous research articles or previous reports, periodicals. So what he has referred, so that has to be written under bibliography as reference books or reference articles or reference periodicals. Okay, so this is about bibliography. So these are the few components or contents of business research report. Okay, so hope you have understood about it. So the research report has to include all these components or contents. So in my next session, I am going to discuss about format of research report. So how the research report has to be written, that is what is the format there. Then chapterization, principles of report writing. So how the research report has to be written and what are the principles to be followed. Next, we shall learn about disadvantages of business research report. So already we have learnt advantages. So in my next session, we shall learn about the disadvantage and wind up this particular unit. So my dear students, hope you have understood today's session. See you all in my next session with a new topic. Till then, take care. Thank you.